Hey everyone, animated constraints. Got a message today. Somebody wanted to know, hey, you got us wanting to do this dance thing, but one of the dance dudes is carrying a cane and he's got to swap it. He's in his hand. It's not going to be in his hand, blah, blah, blah. And how do I do that? So I was like, okay, let's take a look at how we might go about doing that. So pretty simple file I have for you here. This is locator right. This is locator left. These could be left hand, right hand. Personally, what I would normally suggest you do is not constrain directly to the hand. Whether you're, let's say, writing with a character with a pen, or he's got a cleaver, or in this case, he's holding like a dance cane. The advantage of that would be you could parent the locators to the hand. I wouldn't constrain them. You could constrain them, I guess, if you wanted to. But this way, you could actually reposition the cane subject to the hands and it would not snap back or constantly want to snap back to the constrained object. So it just gives you a little bit more freedom. So in this case, I'm going to let this represent the right hand, this represent the left hand, and here is your dancing cane. With that in mind, for an extra layer of animatable goodness, what I probably suggest you do is you probably want to not apply the constraint directly to this object. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this object and I'm actually going to Control G and group it to itself. And let me recenter the pivot, and in this case I'm just going to call this cane group, like that, or ain group, because I can't apparently spell. There you go, cane group, and if we look at it over here, you can see there's the cane group. So I'm going to put the constraints on the cane group. This way, if I need the cane in a slightly different place in his hand, or I want to do something weird, or he's going to shift his hand down the cane or do something, and I want to make it look like something else is happening that's in a different position than where the actual constraint would be, I just have another layer that I can animate on. So it's sort of like when we were creating the foot roll rig. Every time you wanted a rotation from a different spot, we grouped it to itself. So we had another pivot point, we had another layer that we could animate on. And that's really all we're going to be doing. So we have two objects that are going to be our constraint objects. So let's break off the constraints menu, and I'm going to say this one and this one because we can assign them both at the exact same time. And then I am going to select the object to be constrained, which is in this case the cane group. And we'll go to parent constraint and make sure this is all lovely. Gonna hit reset. We want to maintain offset, and I want to affect translate and rotate, and the weight, it should be full, which is great. So I'm just going to say apply. Bang. So now you can see we have the constraint over here, the little red exclamation mark, and you can actually see the weights for each one of the two constraints. Okay, so we have two constraints. So if we move either one of these, and hopefully this is visible, maybe this would look better. Yeah. It tries to stay directly in between the two. Okay, if I select both of these, it moves with them nice and even. Okay. You can shut one of these off. So if we go to the cane group, let's say, and I want to shut off the right hand, I could shut off the right hand. So now when I select the left hand, it moves and takes the cane completely with it. And that's how we're going to pull off holding it in one hand and not holding it in the other hand. We'll do something of that vein. Okie dokie. So I'm going to just put this back to 1, so we're back to start. Alrighty. One more thing I'd like to show you is, and it's a really strange thing that Maya, or the masterminds behind Maya, decided to do, is that there is a tremendously useful and important constraint channel that we can animate, but oddly enough, you can't see it here. It's not here, and it won't be here until we actually put a key on this cane group. All right, so we're going to key this just for a moment, just for the sake of argument. So what I'm going to do, if you look over here and magically watch just below visible, I'm going to hit the S key. Boom. There you go. Now we got this thing called blend parent. Okay, I mean all this stuff's lit up, but I'm just going to clean static channels on the way out, so it makes no difference really. But there you go, look at that. So we've got this new option here, and you might be like, well, what does that do? Well, I'll show you what that does. It's actually quite interesting. We still have constraints on, as we know, but watch this when I grab this. apparently has no constraint. You're like, well, of course, maybe both of them. If I grab both of them, surely they'll be constrained. And no, they're not. Actually, what happens, or what the situation is now, is that the cane group, although we have still constraints on it, both with a full weight of 1, because the blend parent is set to 0, it basically is an on and off switch for the entire constraint system on this object. So as opposed to simply changing the weights to 0, what this does is it literally just turns off the ability for weights to make any difference at all. The big plus for that is that we're back in world space. So for a period of time, we could actually, and will, animate blend parent from 1 to 0, so we can animate the cane in world space, not attached to any constraints, run it back to a certain point, turn back on the blend parent, and the constraints will take on again, which is kind of cool if you think about it. But for now, what I want to do is I want the constraints to work. So I'm going to take my blend parent and I'm going to set it to 1, just like that. So now when I grab this, you can see that we're back to full value of 1, and it's trying to keep its equidistance between the two constraining objects. Isn't that fun? Okay, so what I'm going to do for the very beginning here is I'm going to shut off the right hand. Okay, so now the left hand is the only hand that has any say. So you can see when I rotate this up now, we get that, which is quite cool. Okay, so blah, 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 blah. We're going to leave that on, and I'm going to go to 5. And I'm going to select this guy. I'm going to grab his rotate channels. I think it's Z, but I'm just going to key them all because why not? And I'm going to say, let's say 12, and I'm going to do a little rotate action. I'm going to hold down the J so it snaps, and boom, up to 90. So now it holds, and then it rotates up to 90. Then I'll take it to frame 20, and I'll take this and go back to 0. Okay, so now it's keyed. So basically it'll go rotate up and rotate down. So there you go. Not particularly fancy, and it looks like it's in linear mode because it's getting up there and snapping and then coming right back down. I don't really care at this point. This is a demonstration. Next, what we want to do is at this point now, because it comes right back down at frame 20, these weights are fine at 20, so I'm going to actually key them. But at frame 21, I want to swap them. So what I want at 21 is I want this one to be 0 and I want this one to be 1. And there you go. So now they are swapped. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to say, let's grab this one and we'll give it 2 frames because. And what I'll do is I will key this and let's count up to 30. And I'm going to hold down J, and I'm going to animate this straight up. My snapping didn't take over. It doesn't really make a difference, but there you go. Now that goes up to 90. And then I'm going to let this run stay up there until blah, blah, blah. Actually, what I'll do is I'll hold it up there just a little bit. And now take it up to 40. And back to 0. Cool. So what we have now is this one rotates, holds a second, this one rotates, and it holds a second. There you go. So if we play that down. Dun, dun, dun. So this way, we're able to pass a constraint to what appears to be the left hand and then the right hand of the same object. Okay? Now, at no point during these 40 frames is this object not constrained. At all times, it's constrained to one or the other objects, okay? So in this regard, it's good. If you were just literally holding the cane the whole time and, you know, that was going to work out for you. And that might work out fine for you. But let's say you rose it up on one hand, then you rose it up on the other hand, and then at a certain point, what you wanted to do is you wanted to throw it up in the air. You're like, throwing it up in the air, dudes. Well, with this current system, the only problem with that is if we move the cane, and we're just going to end up with a disaster, because if the hands then move, they're still constrained and they're going to have some say on it, and it's messy, messy, messy. So what we want to do is to actually look at where we're keyed last, and in this case we're keyed last at frame 40, okay? And this is okay, and what I want to do is go to the cane group. I'm going to say at this point, 40, I'm going to key that 1 to hold on to that. At frame 41, I want another key. Okay, so now what I did was I turned blend parent to 0, and neither of these have any say, if you look at it, on that, which is kind of cool. So what I'm going to do then is take this, or the cane group object, and I'm going to say, I'm going to put some translate and rotate keys on it. Actually, let's do this. Let's key the hell out of this thing. Okay. And I'm going to say we're going to throw this sucker up in the air. Okay. And I know nobody's actually throwing it up in the air, but this is just because this is a demonstration that this will do just fine. So what we'll do is we'll do something like this. So now do you see it goes like that, and boom. Boom. Now it goes up in the air like that, and let's say 55. We'll rotate him around a little bit more like this. Potentially start him moving down like this. Let's see what that looks like. Up, and he's coming down. And let's say at frame 60, we are going to move him down to something like this. I'm going to say I want this at, I think I can get away with this, frame 360. And position-wise, I want him to be, well, you know what, let's just do that. Let's just 41 and 60, and just grab these keys and say key selected. I don't know, let's see if this is going to look insane or not. Nope, can't do that. That's alright, it's in the right position. I just need to change the rotation. So let me go in here, and because I screwed up rotation, let me just scrub these, modify, delete by type, and get rid of the static channels. Let's look at rotate Z and say frame, and there's my problem. Get rid of this, I don't need this. So we don't need this, and this should have a value of not 0 but 360. That'll take it around for the whole time. As a matter of fact, I can get rid of that one in the middle, and this should look beautiful, or beauty-esque, as it were. So now we throw it there. So there you go. Look at that. Boom. Right? I don't know if that made sense, but what I did was I just wanted it to flip around, go 360 degrees, and then rotate back down. Boom, like that. See? So the only thing I was really doing was changing its rotation. I might want that to be a little bit higher, which is going to be the translate Y. I'm going to frame that up. And in here, actually, what I'll do is I'll get rid of this, grab this, flatten this out, and I'm going to grab these guys, and what can I do? Let's do this, because it's fun. We'll just make these go like a nice ball bounce hop. Nice and high like that. Okay? This probably should go higher, but let's take a look. 1, 2, boom. 1, 2, boom. Just like that. Okie dokie. So now we've got this object and he's animated out, but now after his hop, what I really want is I need him to be taken over by the constraints again. So at frame 60, he's not. So at frame 60, I'm going to key this back to 0. So, right? Then came frame 61. We'll turn on the constraints again. So now we have constraints. So in theory, if we rotate Oops, see, left hand's turned off. So at this point, actually, it would be this guy. Okay, so we'll turn on that constraint as well. So at frame, let's see, frame 61, we need, let me double check. What I'll do is at frame 60, I know I don't need these, but I'm just going to bracket this. Go key selected, and now I'm going to turn this on to 1, all right? And key those. Okay, so now we're at frame 61, those are 1, cool. So now they both will rotate. So all I've done was to make sure that, and let's just double check that. 1, 1. Yeah, doesn't make any difference actually. There you go. 1, 1. And there you go. It's probably drifting, but we're not using it at that phase anyway. Boom, so it doesn't make any damn bit of difference. So at frame 61, what I'll do is I'll take this guy, and I'm going to key his rotation, key this, and I actually want to shut off the right hand. So what I'll do here is 0 that out, right? And grab this, and I already keyed a rotation on that. And so we'll go to frame 68 and rotate this up like that. Right? And maybe 75, we will rotate it down. Probably going to need more frames. Take it up to an even 100. At frame 75, I want to go back into the cane group, key these guys again. Key those, now flip them. So I'll make turn the left hand off, turn the right hand on. Okay. And key that. Okay, so now we got that. Then if either 75, 76, we could just take this and say key that. And I'm going to say, it doesn't really matter here, something like 84. We'll take this and send that up, and at 90 we will take this back down, and there you go. So just cleaning that up a little bit, basically what we end up with is this rotates this and that, and that's basically all you need to do. The tricky part, especially if the curves, or if you see any slippage or anything in the control, it's very likely what's happening is if you go into your constrained object, any one of these you can select, they're all the same keys. Basically you want a 0 or 1 condition. So if you look at it here, it's in this case the right hand or the right locator. He's at 0. This is where we switch to the right hand controls, and the right hand controls to this point, which is at 1, and then this is the switch at this point where this goes to 0, and if you look at the reverse, that's when the right hand, or better yet, oh sorry, right here is where the right hand switches on and the left hand switches off. So if you ever saw like a long line coming up or something like that, that's basically why it would start to drift, or you might have forgotten to key it like I did, so it got messy. But that's basically it. And the other thing that you want to key and control, as I mentioned, is this blend parent, which is way at the bottom. And again, this is a 0 or 1. Here's 1, it's controlled, 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 until I turn it off at 0. This is where we throw the thing up in the air, then we turn it back on again, which is then when we can get the control back in the hands. And that's it. That's basically how you could use constraints to throw an object up in the air. Hopefully that made sense. We can go over it in class, but hopefully that was helpful. Take care, guys.